Hello, I'm Joanne Smith, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a cast of an ear. The products in front of us are what you're going to be needing. We have over here dental alginate. It's a dustless type 2 regular set. We have a syringe, a measuring cup with 120 mils of water measured out, as well as this little cylinder that has some extra water in case we need it. The water is cold because it gives us a longer setting time, which we'll need. This was our alginate that was measured out. We have Vaseline. We have a coffee cup from your local coffee store, which will be cut into pieces at a later stage. We have a spatula for mixing the alginate, some tape, and some cling wrap. We're now going to prepare our volunteer, who is lying with his head down on a flat surface, his ear as parallel to that surface as possible. I'm going to apply the Vaseline because he's got lots to apply it to with his beard. I'm going to be quite generous with it. It washes out quite easily afterwards, so I'm told, so he doesn't have to worry too much about that. And I'm going to put it actually on the skin where the hair isn't as well. And the reason for that is that when I apply the plastic film, it'll actually help it adhere. So here we've got the plastic film. I'm circling the ear, covering as much of the hair and beard as I can. And it actually sticks quite nicely. Okay, so here we have a bit of cotton wool, which we're going to insert into the ear canal. I now have cut off a piece of this coffee cup, and I am applying it over the ear. And this isn't essential, but I find it's helpful to just use a bit of tape to stick it down. And one of the reasons is if the alginate is a bit too liquid, it tends to run all over the show, and this helps contain it. So I'm just sticking it down. So now we move on to the only tricky, terrifying part of this process, and that is mixing up the dental alginate, because it has to be just right. So here I've got my 48 grams of alginate. I'm pouring in my 120 mils of water, and I am mixing. I'm just mixing as quickly as I can, and I can see that this is way too dry, so I'm just going to dump a bunch more in. Continue mixing, and I believe we have about a minute in which to do that. That's about right. Now I take my syringe and I suck in the alginate. I pour it behind the ear, and then you try and suck up some more as quickly as possible, and then you do it on the top of the ear. And depending what the purpose is that you're making this for, that would determine what was the most important part that you got. You try and pat it down in case there's any air bubbles. You pat it down in case there are any air bubbles, and then you just fill up this little cavity, and that is basically it. Once we've done that, we just wait for a few minutes. Now, if it was too runny, we would just make sure that it wasn't oozing down his neck, but this consistency looks pretty good. We're now going to remove the alginate from the ear, and it's best to take it back that way because of the shape of the ear. So this I can actually just lift up all the tape and plastic, and you'll see it'll just slowly release. May do a little bit of a wiggle. and it's great that that bit of cotton wool came out as well, so we know it's not stuck in his ear. For the second part of the process, we are going to be creating the positive mold of the ear. To do that, we've got our negative mold, and we'll remove that little bit of cotton wool. I have this plaster, it's dental stone, called Ortho Plaster Snow White Type 2. Now I believe there is a Type 3 which would be even harder. Now depending what your purpose is, you might be able to use any common plaster of Paris powder, but if there's going to be any pressure applied to the model, you'll need a harder dental stone. We have the plaster measured out. This is a 1/2 cup, and it's usually 2 to 1, so I've got a 1/4 cup of water here, and I'm using my spatula. I also have masking tape. I'm using this masking tape to build up an area where we'll be able to pour in the dental stone. It doesn't have to be much. Try and get it to adhere to the cup. I'm now going to pour first the water, always water first, and then the powder gets added to the water. So you pour it in slowly. You actually, at the beginning, you don't even have to stir. You can see, if you look close up, that it just gets absorbed. And you just keep going. Sometimes I give it a bit of a shake to try and get it to absorb some more. And then sometimes you get an appearance of like cracks on the top. And then I'm going to just mix it up, try and get out as many of the lumps as I can. Again, that's a fairly creamy consistency. Yeah, that consistency looks pretty perfect. So I'm now going to pour it into the mold. Now I do need to make sure that it goes into all the spaces, and this is looking quite thick, so I need to just give it a bit of a shake to make sure that it goes in everywhere. I'll be deforming it a little bit just to make sure it goes in, and then it'll come back to its shape. And then we just pour it all in. Give it a few more shakes to try and make sure that it's gone where it needs to be. It doesn't matter if it comes out the bottom a bit, we'll sort that out. Tap it maybe a few times, but that should be perfect. While we're waiting for the plaster to harden, I should just mention that you really should not pour plaster down the sink. I just use a paper towel to wipe out my container, and when everything is almost cleaned up, then I'll put it under the tap and clean it that way. Also, you may not have this sort of professional equipment that I use, this very nice silicone bowl, but I'm sure an empty cottage cheese container would work fine, and instead of this nice spatula, you could probably use a tongue depressor. So be as creative as you wish to find alternatives. These are regular measuring cups. So here we have our mold, which I will start to unwrap by removing the masking tape. And then I'll remove that, and there's a little bit of plaster that seeped in between the alginate. And so now we need to slowly ease off the alginate. Sometimes it comes off really easily, and you can actually break the alginate if you have any doubt about it. I'm going to rip it a little bit because I don't want to tear the ear. And there you start to see the ear is coming off. And there we go. There's the mold of the ear.